Greetings. I am making a short video today to show some of the work I've been doing on layering. So in particular, layering has been one of the last little bits we've needed in Figuro to be able to do something useful with it. After converting everything over from Fidgety and Fidget in the past, I had to redesign things and put a little bit of work into it. Um, so I guess I'll just show a simple demo of how to do it, and then I'll go around and show some of the insides of it, just for curiosity's sake. But here, you can see I have layers test. Um, just a simple thing containing two containers. It's a container A and B, and they're pretty much identical in that they contain three buttons. At layer 20, the default layer, which is layer 0, and layer -5. The only difference between the two containers here is that one is clipped content. However, with these layering things, we can get away from strict requirements on how we lay out our widgets, which is nice. It also enables things like drop-down menus, buttons, pop-ups, a lot of the other sort of things we'll actually need to do with widgets. So you can see in the not clipped ones, the width extends past our container. Both level 20 and level 0, the default, are, presented on top as normal. The one that's a negative level here goes back behind. You can see we can only activate it when we hover over it. That one took a little bit to get right. I'm sure there's some logic cases we might need to look to resolve in the future. Now here in the clipped one, you can see that the higher layer isn't clipped because it kind of hovers, well, above the clipped layer here. However, this guy, he's the default level, which is the same as container, so he's clipped by that container. Then again, we have the one in the background, but you can see it's not being hovered on because we're clipping events based on this box. So it gives us an easy way to kind of control the different mechanisms of how you want to be able to hover different widgets and different effects like that. I'll do a short demo here of how that is implemented and some of the output and that we see. Transfer. No, I want test transfer. Okay. So it's sort of handled in a test transfer. Transfer is a mechanism that takes our front-end Figuro nodes and converts them to our back-end rendering nodes. So Figuro is built on this kind of difference where we have our more complex ref objects that handle events, set up the drawing and everything, and provide callbacks and everything, right? And then there's the backend nodes, which are very similar, but they are plain objects, and they're made that so that they're really fast to copy on the backend without doing lots of allocations. So every time we render or we draw a new scene based on events on the front end Figuro side, we will go ahead and trigger a rendering event or draw event, and then that goes through and copies out to these render nodes. These aren't stacked in a hierarchical way, they're actually just placed in a sequence that's returned back. So it's a little bit tricky to get an iterator that will recover the hierarchical nature without having to, without having to pass in a list of tree nodes like the Figuro nodes are. Sorry, it's a little bit complicated there. I've been meaning to write up a blog post or something on that because I find it kind of interesting, a little bit fun. But perhaps a little bit more concrete example here. So I have an example node, we're creating here in our test. And, just basic, a couple of children, some other children, some Z levels, and creates a nice little Figuro hierarchy, with parents, siblings, children. This gets rendered into a flat list of objects that are sorted by their layer. So we have -10, 20, and 30, which are the different layers I have here. And from this information I encode into our children, we're able to reconstruct a node. So this is a render tree, which is just for testing and debugging purposes to recreate that initial Figuro tree. But this gives a nice way to test and show what the iterator output is going to do. So it breaks it up per level, and each of these levels will be rendered one, starting from the lowest to the highest, and provide us a nice layered output, like again, like we see in our layers here. So pretty exciting to be able to get all of this together and actually working, where it creates a nice hierarchical, way to implement widgets. So the next step will be probably starting to make some drop down and some other type of menus with this. So it'd be pretty exciting to actually be making widgets and UI stuff again. All right, till next time.